welcome to the Ghost of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 128 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 54 of A Clash of Kings, that's Tyrion 12.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes, they'll provide some additional information about the characters, geography, and other things of note in this chapter. How are you, Mackelly?
I'm doing all right. This is a beautiful day. I took a very long walk this evening before we started recording here. It was beautiful early February. What we got up into the mid 70s or so.
I saw my car said 77 at one point, but
wow.
For our international audience, that's 25 Celsius.
All right.
It's crazy.
I did not know what it would be in Celsius.
Once I got rolling in the car, the temperature came down a little bit. It'd been sitting there in the sun.
Oh yes, yes.
It was still very warm.
I think it was in the 70s at least.
Yeah.
So I just got a call from Ethan. He was at a career fair at he's at his university, and I was like, "How'd it go?" And he goes, "It went well. The first person that I talked with went fantastic until it came crashing to an end." And I was like, "Oh boy, what'd you do now?" And he goes, "Well, it went really great. He was asking me a lot of questions, and he was asking me if I could start before I graduated even, and he wanted me to go apply immediately when I got home, and then when we were done, you're not allowed to shake hands. You have to fist bump because it's in person now, but you're still not allowed to shake hands with the person you're interacting with." And he said, so the guy put his fist out, and he said, the guy said, "You have a good evening now." And Ethan fist bumped him and said, "Yeah, you too, man." And he was like, "Why did I call him man? Like, what kind of situation?"
That's not the end of the world.
That's what I said. He was like, "I can't believe because as the story was going, I was like, how could this go wrong? So far, this sounds perfect." But he goes, "I could see in the guy's eyes that he lost respect for me because I called him man instead of sir, or,
Right. You shouldn't do that in an interview type situation. I get it, but you just fist bumped it.
That's what Ethan's defense was.
That's exactly right. I mean, the guy must realize that is a casual social interaction right. In an otherwise non-casual setting.
Yes.
I think he should not worry.
That was the exact defense that Ethan had. It was a fist. If it had been a handshake, I would have been in the mindset to say, "Thank you for your time, sir. It was a pleasure meeting you." But it was a fist bump.
Exactly. That's not his fault.
So I just texted him right before we started and said, "Don't sweat the you two man thing. If you weren't going to get the job because of that, you weren't going to get the job, period." So
probably not. Yeah, it's like being social on interviews is usually a sign that you've sealed the deal, Right. I remember somebody that we work with, I interviewed them, and we asked them if she was a wrestling move, would she be a submission or a knockout? And she was like, "Oh, knockout for sure," and sort of like, and her confidence on that was just like, was what sold us on her.
I've never heard that particular question before in an interview.
We did it as a joke because we kind of like, it was a group of us and we'd sort of like been sort of like studying what interview questions we should ask.
Right. And
like all these pages said, "Don't do stupid questions like," and it gave a list, and one of them was this. So we did it just to sort of like, it was towards the end of the interview, but it was kind of like just an icebreaker, just to sort of like, be social. And this person who had been really sweet and quiet and pleasant to live was just like, it just brought her out of her shell. She was like, "Oh, knockout for sure," like. And the first real job I ever got, the interview went very well, and the HR person was interviewing me last, and it went fine until they said, what what's your ideal job? And so I tried to describe the job I was applying for.
Good idea. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of lost my thread and sort of like, it'd been a long day. It's like I'd had like 5 interviews on this one place with different people. And then I said, look, to be honest, I want to be centre forward for Oldham Athletic. That's my ideal job. and she told me later, she told me a few months later that was the moment when she knew I was the right person.
All right. There you go. See? Yeah. Early on in my career, I once answered a question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I was not very polished at interview responses yet. I described a job that had nothing to do with the job I was applying for or the company that I was applying to.
Not here, that's for sure.
I remember thinking about, when I think back about that, I'm like, oh, what an idiot. Why would I? Who had nothing to do with the company or the job. Anyway.
So this is why we're doing this, guys. This is because we can't secure real jobs. All right, let's get down to business. How did we leave Tyrion Lannister? Last we saw of Tyrion, he was readying the defences of King's Landing, sending his mountain clans out to harry Stannis' force, destroying structures that could be used as a foothold, and with Varys he was helping to unearth plots to open the gates by the so-called Antler Men. Why don't we give them the summary of this one?
Okay. Pod dresses Tyrion for dinner with Cersei. He leaves his chain of office behind because she doesn't like to be reminded of his position. En route, he meets Varys with news from the north. They're slightly cryptic about its contents, but it appears to say that Bran and Rickon Stark are dead. I feel like we need a moment of silence or something here for the
fake news.
But we do have a show to carry on, so I will keep going here. Tyrion is moved by the news, as we all are, I'm sure. He takes the letter so that he might share the news with Cersei and watch her reaction.
With Cersei, he passes her the letter and watches her read. He says she must be pleased, wanting Bran dead and all. Cersei says that it was Jaime who pushed him, a move she disagreed with. But when did our brother ever stop to think, she says. Tyrion counters that Bran had seen them, but Cersei, not incorrectly, points out that he was young enough to be coerced into silence or forgetting. Cersei's a little bit offended that she should be suspected when this is clearly the work of the Greyjoys. Tyrion hopes that Catelyn sees it that same way, or Jaime might be in real danger. They do still have Sansa, so that should keep Jaime safe for now.
They settle down to quite the sumptuous dinner, despite the famine in the rest of the city. Tyrion is careful to only eat what Cersei eats. He doesn't think she'd poison him, but he's not putting it beyond a Lannister to poison a sibling.
Well, probably, given his own track record, he's probably got a point there.
Yes.
He poisoned her. So.
Right. Paybacks and all. They have no news of Littlefinger and ponder whether he might have switched sides. They discuss the Antlermen's plot. Cersei feels aggrieved that they would betray the Lannisters who have never harmed them. I almost got through that with a straight face. Surprisingly, she did. Tyrion reckons that they just want to be on the winning side. He thinks they've caught them all, at least Varys does, but Cersei says that he places too much trust in the eunuch. For years, she thought that Varys was a true friend, but no longer.
She has heard that Balon, Swann and the Hound are to be relieved of their bodyguard duties to lead sorties in the forthcoming battle. She's annoyed. Tyrion curses Varys for sharing his secrets, rather proving Cersei's previous point.
Right.
Joffrey wants to fight, and Tyrion agrees, but plans to keep him visible but safe. While the city might fall, they can retreat to the Red Keep and hope to hold out long enough for help to arrive from Tywin.
Cersei discourses on why Varys is so dangerous, and men are vulnerable. They do their thinking with their genitals. Tyrion begins to feel a bit nervous. Cersei delights in announcing that, through her own sources, not Varys, she has found, as she puts it, Tyrion's little whore. Tyrion tries to be stoic and unfazed. She's paying her debts for all Tyrion's scheming against her. Tommen, Myrcella, getting Joffrey killed and rolling through Tommen. Tyrion denies that, while in his head admiring the tempting picture.
She won't kill Tyrion, though she has fantasized about it, because Jaime would never forgive her. However, if anything befalls Tommen or Joffrey, the whore dies in agony. Tyrion again insists that he would never harm his own nephews. Cersei has the Kettleblacks bring in the prisoner. It's Alayaya, not Shay. Tyrion's stony face belies the internal cartwheels. After just promising to never hurt the boys, he says that whatever befalls Alayaya will befall Tommen, so she's to be kept gently. He makes a promise of vengeance to Cersei, and she orders him out.
When he gets back to the Tower of the Hand, Shay is waiting for him, all smiles and fun. She's been smuggled in by Varys wearing a hood, and they try as they might, neither of them can find the secret door. Her route went over a mosaic, but that's all she can offer. Tyrion can't perform, and encourages Shay to just sleep. She does, but he cannot.
Yeah.
Probably has some indigestion.
Yeah, although, I mean, you pay the price when you dine that handsomely.
It's true.
It was quite the feast.
It was.
On any occasion, but while the people are starving all around you. Imagine the servants bringing all that stuff to them. You know?
I know. There's like in a paragraph long of the food, it was enough for a buffet for 20 people. It was just Cersei and Tyrion.
Wasn't there a swan in there?
There was Swann, yes.
I mean, a swan is a huge bird.
And they didn't eat the swan. It was taken away almost untouched.
Possibly. Yeah, they couldn't possibly eat this.
Right, it was the last course. They'd had 6 previous courses.
So, the news from Winterfell is the biggest shocker of this chapter. The boys are dead. But is that why Jon smelled death when he was interacting with Bran in his dreams last time? Right. Can it be true, though? This is the thing that's I'm not sure about. Because last time we were in Winterfell, Theon seemed to have completely lost the boys. So somehow in the intervening time, he's recaptured them and killed them. But again, that doesn't feel like it would be a smart move, because he needs those boys to give him any authority in Winterfell, at least any leverage in Winterfell.
Right.
So the news is weird.
It is, you're right.
Hopefully not true.
In last Theon chapter, it ended with them heading toward the mill and Reek having a bag of furs and a brooch. Right. And now, next thing you know, we hear the boys are dead. So yeah, those two things don't exactly line up perfectly.
I mean, in this book, things happen while we're not watching.
Right.
I have noticed that. You'll go from one chapter to the next to another character, and things have happened to that character while you've been away.
Right.
Know? But this seems like the sort of thing you might mention in passing.
Yeah. Maybe on the way to the mill, they just stumbled across the boys sitting by the creekside or something. But yes, like you said, is that why Jon smelled death? We did make some allusions to it last chapter. We talked about it being ominous for Bran that Jon was smelling death and darkness around Bran. It was almost like we knew this was coming.
What are you saying? Speak for yourself.
But we mentioned why now? Why were Jon and Bran co-dreaming? Was one of them in some sort of unique danger? Could that have been why? And if you recall, Bran and Rickon had a shared dream with Ned when he died. So, could there be some sort of similar situation here with Bran and Jon, possibly?
Yeah.
And another thing I just wanted to mention was it was revealed in a Tyrion POV, not a Theon or a Cat or even Sansa or Arya. Is Tyrion, which is removed from the true grief that the family members would be feeling.
Yeah, although Theon's not going to send a raven to Sansa saying, True. Hey, remember me, old friends? I killed your little brothers.
Although it could have been it could have come about through Sansa that she got wind of it while in the Red Keep, Like, because she's in the Red Keep along. Yeah. This news is going to spread. Even Varys said, I haven't told anyone yet, but I'm going to have to. So at some point, the news is going to get to Sansa. You would think.
Although she's pretty. I mean, you can keep things from Sansa if you want to. The only thing is, here's a guess, and this might happen, but I genuinely don't remember. That little horror Joffrey will probably tell her just for the joy of telling her.
Yes, that would definitely be within character.
Yes, even if Cersei said, "Let's not tell Sansa this because we want to keep it on the down low," you'd be like, "Wait, but she'd be really crestfallen, can't I? Please, mummy.
Please, mummy." Oh man.
But so, we've mentioned before that Cersei and Catelyn are the ones who blab secrets in this book, and
right.
Cersei just completely offers up that Jaime pushed Bran out of the window, and she provided plenty of context to make it sound believable. It's not like she said, "I think it was Jaime that pushed him out the window." It was like she described the whole scene in great detail.
Even the reason that he did it. He did it
right
for love, she said.
So I read an article not long ago about lying and about people whose profession relies on rooting out liars, like detectives say,
Right. Okay.
And it was the article was also about lie detectors, and it was saying that both detectives and lie detectors have a similar accuracy in detecting liars, about 50%.
Okay.
About exactly the same as a coin.
Right. Okay.
But this article went on to say that there is a very good way to find out if someone is making something up, and that is to ask them to tell the story, and then ask them again and ask them for more details, and then ask them again and ask them for more details, and keep doing it. Because if you were there, if you witnessed something and it's true, you can always add extra layers of details. But if you made it up, it peters out very quickly what you can add to that story because you don't remember it. You don't remember the smells. You don't remember the how foggy it was. You don't remember those things because you didn't experience them.
Right.
But if you experience them, you can always add those extra details back in.
Huh. Fascinating.
And it was fascinating.
Yeah.
So Cersei read the same article and she provided every last detail.
I honestly thought you were going to go the other way and say that people over-elaborate with details when they're lying.
They might try to, but when it comes down to it, but that's the trick, you see. They may tell a very detailed first story, but then press them again and ask them, well, what were you thinking at the time? What was the light like? They can't embellish because they've practiced the one lie.
Right.
They
didn't build a world around that
memory.
Lie.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. Oh, that's cool. Interesting stuff.
It's funny enough. I read the article probably like a year ago, but in the book I'm reading, it referenced it. I'm reading a book,
right,
and it referenced that article. And it's the book I'm reading is it's Norwegian thriller, Harry Hole novels by a guy called Joe Nesbo, and he, as a police officer, was mentioning the fact that they're no good at detecting liars. They can't tell a liar from a truth teller.
Huh.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. Okay, good stuff. Well, Tyrion, I think, tries to draw more information out of Cersei here. While she's reading the letter, he says, "I trust you're pleased. You wanted him dead, I believe." And I think he said that to see how she reacted to the idea of wanting Bran dead, because he still doesn't know who sent the cat's paw to try and kill unconscious Bran that Cat and Summer thwarted. And all he knows is that he is blamed for it. But if Cersei sent him, that could be an explanation as to why he was blamed.
Right, and now's the time to ask her, because she's blabbing.
Right. Yeah,
but also, he is also interested as to whether she had anything to do with this attempt on Bran's life.
Yes,
I think.
sure.
I mean, you're definitely right. His real intent is backwards, is to the previous assassination attempt. But he's also curious if she somehow got message to Greyjoy to kill the boys. Although, what's in it for her at this point? I mean...
Yeah.
Right. Well, I guess there's still the Bran knows the truth about her, And if
that's true,
and that is actually the one thing that could give legitimacy to the illegitimacy of her children.
Right.
An eyewitness to her shenanigans with Jaime.
It's a smoking gun, a little boy smoking gun. Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, of course, we know that the rumor about Tyrion owning the dagger was started by Littlefinger, but if Cersei had sent the cat's paw, she very well could have then bribed Littlefinger to spread this rumor about this dagger having belonged to Tyrion if she wanted to pin it on him. And if now that we're talking about the dagger, this is a quick side conversation here. I feel like we expected him to do more digging into the dagger situation than he's done.
Tyrion?
Yes. When he got... Remember, I think when they first got out of the Mountains of the Moon, he was trying to decide if he should go back to Casterly Rock or King's Landing. I'm pretty sure I have this right. And he decided he was going to go to King's Landing because there was a certain dagger he needed to follow up on.
Right.
But
he did have one conversation with Littlefinger about it, didn't he?
One very vague kind of dancing around the topic. It was the chapter when he was trying to figure out who the mole was, and so he met with Grand Maester Pycelle, and he met with Varys, and he met with Littlefinger. And Littlefinger came to Tyrion's chambers with the dagger on, and Tyrion commented on the dagger, and then Littlefinger offered it to him as a gift. And Tyrion was amazed that he would have the guts to show up in his own chambers wearing that dagger, and he thought it could only be because this guy thinks he's untouchable. And that was really the only conversation they've had about it.
Yeah, but I guess maybe at that point he thinks there's no point confronting him over the dagger because he's being so brazen about it,
Right, yeah, could be.
There's nothing to be gained. Hey, didn't you accuse me of owning that dagger one time? I did, and it worked beautifully. So the one thing about this, so Cersei criticizes Jaime for pushing Bran and says that she wouldn't have done it. So I'm not sure. I think this is a little bit of she's sort of recasting her own thoughts after the fact. She probably thinks it was a bad idea now because Bran survived and nothing was gained from it. But this is a woman who fired Barristan Selmy, murdered all of Robert's bastards, plied her husband with booze on a boar hunt, had Lady killed.
Right.
She's not one for half measures. So I'm thinking that she might not have gone, "Don't tell anyone." She would have instead pushed him out of the window.
Yeah. It definitely fits what we're learning about Cersei as far as her personality goes, certainly. That she's
But here she is denying it.
Yeah, that she's not the kind of person to, like you said, do the minimum to achieve her ends.
Right.
She'll go as far and further as she needs to achieve such ends. But so then Tyrion thinks in his head that the news of the Starks soured her, and of course that can only be for fear for Jaime, because she certainly isn't soured likely by being broken up, that these two boys have tragically lost their lives. I mean, like you said, we know she had children killed in King's Landing in cold blood, so it's...
Yes. And potentially murderous intent against one of the two children that's supposedly dead now as well.
Right. Yes.
She is now denying that whilst also spreading other truths, so...
Yeah, and she seems, like you said, she seems totally against it here. But way back in Tyrion 1 of A Game of Thrones, when Tyrion told them at that breakfast after he went upside Joff's head for making fun of Bran. Then he was having breakfast with the rest of the family, and when he told them that Bran might live, he noticed a look pass between Cersei and Jaime.
Yep,
and then Cersei said, "It's cruel of the Northern gods to let him live." So, that's a little bit incriminating to make such a statement like that.
So they fear Catelyn's retaliation if she thinks the Lannisters might be involved. I mean, we don't know of any correspondence between the Lannisters and the Greyjoys, but certainly the Greyjoys have attacked the north, and so that means they're at least both enemies of the Starks.
Yeah. It does seem a bit of a stretch for Cat to blame the Lannisters for a murder that surely seems like Theon. Well, assuming it was him, like you said, we don't know. We don't know what's going on there.
But he's the one who spread the rumor, right? I believe he's the one who sent the Raven. So
you would think so. I don't know if it ever says, but you would certainly think that it was news from the north. So I think that was all the info we got. But Balon, Theon's father, did send a letter to the Lannisters asking for an alliance. So if Cat got wind of that, it might make her think that the boys were part of the deal. Like, you take out those boys and we'll have an alliance.
Certainly the North, but again, the murder of the boys seems I don't know. I just don't see any strategic value, really. I mean, if anything, it would make me, as Robb Stark, slow down my race back to Winterfell to kill Theon, because I'm like, there's no rush now. I'll take my time over that. I'll finish my business here, and then I'll go home. He was rushing home to save Bran and Rickon.
Right. That's a very solid point. Yeah. But so they're fearing for Jaime's life, and but you just can't. At least I can't imagine a mother who just lost 2 children would retaliate in a way that would cause any chance of the death of a third child.
You mean Sansa?
Sansa, right? Yes.
Oh, well, Sansa and Arya, right? I mean,
they think
Catelyn still
Lannisters
thinks
have
that
Arya.
both of them,
right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think the problem is the Lannisters, at least Cersei, sees things through the lens of Joffrey's eye. If Catelyn Stark was Joffrey, he would kill Jaime in retaliation for this.
Right.
But because he wouldn't think through the consequences. In the same way, when he killed Ned, he put Jaime's life in danger.
Right. Yeah.
But Catelyn, you're absolutely right. She's not going to do anything to Jaime for this.
But there are other people to consider. The Northmen in general are a different story than Cat, whose child is being held captive by the Lannisters. Rickard Karstark is like the face of the disgruntled Northmen right now. And we know he really wants Jaime dead for killing his 2 sons. And his son was being held captive in Harrenhal by Tywin Lannister, but the Lannisters have been ousted from Harrenhal, which, might make him a little more free to want to exact revenge on Jaime.
True. But the other part of that, of course, is the coming battle here at King's Landing. I mean, if the Lannisters are turfed off the throne and Sansa and Arya are freed by not the Boltons, but by Stannis. I in my head then I had Roose Bolton and Stannis Baratheon as kind of the same person, but they are actually different.
They are.
If Stannis were to get hold of the girls, even if he doesn't free them immediately, there's no longer a trade-off for Jaime. So you really could execute Jaime at that point.
Sure, right, yeah.
Because he has done some bad things to the North.
Yeah.
And certainly there's a degree of revenge wanted by the North for all the things that have happened. And I'm sure Cat would be okay with it too.
Yeah, and I think in that situation, Robb probably would be more okay with it as well, because it would appease the very disgruntled, especially Rickard Karstark here.
Yep. Which is actually, I wonder then, I mean, obviously we think of Stannis and the Starks as being sort of natural allies here because they're both anti-Lannister, with the long-term problem of, well, that once the Lannisters are dealt with, there'll be trouble between the two of them because neither of them is going to be very flexible. But this could actually be enough for the Starks to withdraw. If you say thank you, Stannis, send the girls home, we'll execute Jaime Lannister, and then we'll head back into the north. That might be.
The issue is whether Robb would be willing to give up his crown, because Stannis has said, I'm not going to settle for 6 of my 7 kingdoms. Robb is a traitor, just like Renly and just like the Lannisters. So
yeah, but again, I mean, I know we've talked this to death, but he isn't a traitor to Stannis. Stannis is not on the Iron Throne. He's rebelled against who's on the Iron Throne now.
Yeah.
And he claimed the throne, but that's because he claimed the crown because there was no legitimate king on the throne. Maybe once Stannis gets there, he bends the knee. Just doesn't feel like it should be it's not treason against Stannis what the Starks are doing.
Not until he's on the throne. Then it could be treasonous, I guess.
Right. That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Cersei says about this, her possibly being blamed for the boy's death. She says to Tyrion, "Why is it that every time a Stark stubs their toe, I take the blame for it?" And I was like, well, if you take it piece by piece, she was standing on the platform when Ned was beheaded. She was standing next to Jaime when Bran was pushed out the window. She has taken Sansa, captive, and she's lost Arya, and she assumes Arya's dead.
And let's not forget, killed lady.
Killed lady, right. So she probably should rethink that statement a little bit.
Actually, this whole thinking that she would have liked to stop Jaime from pushing Bran, I wonder if that sort of like is she's mangling 2 memories, because she really did try to prevent Ned's death, I think she called out for that to not happen, but the Ilan Payne took the command of the king as a command,
right?
As one is supposed to.
Yeah, she definitely said afterwards she didn't want that to happen. Yeah.
And I wonder if she's remembering the other time a Stark got almost killed by a Lannister. Yeah. She was also, please don't do it, Jaime. So, as you mentioned, the food description was fantastic. It's got to be both hard and easy to eat so lavishly while the rest of the city is starving. I mean, like, if it smelled good, I could probably eat it myself. But at the same time, it is a little bit monstrous to do that.
It is. It definitely is, especially since it was so over the top, the amount of food they had. Any one of those dishes that was a paragraph long would have been enough to sustain them for dinner. They had at least 6 or 7 courses. So, but of course, Tyrion was concerned that Cersei might try to poison him, so he was only eating whatever she was eating. But then we learn very soon after that she had much better plan to torture and control him while keeping him alive to suffer through it.
Yeah, you would want him not confined to the latrine for this news.
Right.
You'd want him feeling nicely bloated. So they talk about they have had no word from Bitterbridge, so they don't know if they've sent Littlefinger as an ambassador to appeal to Marjorie Tyrell to marry Joffrey and become queen, and in so doing secure the Tyrells to their side.
Right.
This is making Cersei worry that Littlefinger has perhaps switched sides.
Yeah, it is getting a little odd. Now, I know the Stannis and his army are coming from the south, which is kind of southwest is where Bitterbridge is. So, things might be a little chaotic. But, I mean, cross the Blackwater Rush far upstream and send a messenger on the northern side of the river. Clearly, Stannis' men haven't thought about how to get across the river yet, so he should be pretty safe and just waltz into King's Landing with an update or something. But, like we've said before, Mace Tyrell is the Lord Paramount of the Reach and the head of House Tyrell. He's not at Bitterbridge, so it's kind of odd that they keep acting like word is going to come from Bitterbridge. For an alliance like this, you would almost certainly think it would have to come from Mace himself.
Yeah. But I guess the army was at Bitterbridge, and so the point is you're trying to get that army to come to your side.
Right.
Certainly communication would have to happen between Bitterbridge, personified by Loras Tyrell, and Highgarden, personified by Mace Tyrell.
Right.
There must be communication between those two for this to happen, but the army itself will be coming from the Bitterbridge direction.
That's true. Yes. So yeah, they could be thinking about it that way. That makes sense.
Yeah. Cersei thinks the Littlefinger might have gone over to Stannis, but Tyrion points out that Stannis would not be a very comfortable lord for the likes of Littlefinger. The Lannisters and Baratheons might like their schemers, but Stannis, he no likey.
No, not so much. You certainly can't imagine Stannis tolerating someone like Littlefinger, especially once he's sitting comfortably on the Iron Throne and is able to put his stamp on the small council. But on the other side of the coin, we've seen so far in this book Stannis accept some people that he otherwise would not accept into his fold because his first priority is winning the throne. So if he had to tolerate Littlefinger in order to get that army at Bitterbridge, he would do it, or some advantage from Littlefinger.
Yeah, and they were on the small council together, so they do know each other.
Right, they were, yeah.
So the pig that was part of this gargantuan feast was supplied by Tanda Stokeworth, who asked in return. And, I mean, it must be hard to keep a pig in the Red Keep for long enough to be available for this meal. Right. So she really tried. She wants to go home to Stokeworth, but Tyrion says that's not going to happen. Instead, she should bring her garrison of troops from Stokeworth to help with the defense of King's Landing.
Yeah, and I found that noteworthy because it just brought up the idea in my head that we've heard nothing from the Crown land houses rising to defend the crown. There's plenty of houses in the Crown lands, all the way from Duskendale, all the way down to south of King's Landing. There's plenty of Crown's land houses that should be able to raise an army if called by the king. Yet the only defense we hear about in King's Landing are the Gold Cloaks.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
Yes, that's an interesting point. Of course, the one thing about the Crown lands is that they don't have a lord in the same way that the other regions of the Seven Kingdoms do.
Yeah.
And so their allegiance has always been directly to the
king. To the king himself. Right.
And when the king's succession is as dubious as it is here, it might be difficult for them to actually pick a side, Like, for instance, if you're from the Stormlands, well, Stannis Baratheon is claiming the throne. He's your lord. Cheer him on, If you're from the North, Robb Stark is, king of the North now. But the Crown lands, it's like, hey, the crown. Which one?
Which one?
Exactly.
Who should be wearing the crown? That is a good point. I had not thought about that. And you'd also think, being that Robert's Rebellion was only about 15, 16 years ago, they might still not fully embrace the Baratheons as their lord, their king, because for generations it was the Targaryens that were their lords.
So Cersei's confused why she's plagued with treasons like these antler men, and what did House Lannister ever do to these wretches? She said, well, suckling on a roast swan.
Yeah.
Remember the antler men?
The answer is, do you want that alphabetically or in order of importance?
So the antler men are this group of wealthy traders and merchants and smiths who are planning to open the Old Gate to let Stannis in. The truth of the matter is, what Tyrion says here is that it's not really that they're being treasonous. They just want to be on the winning side here. Because if you're on the losing side, bad things have happened in King's Landing before to the losers.
Right.
But again, entirely incomprehensible to me why anyone who wins a city would then slaughter the citizenry. It makes very little sense.
But... I agree. Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to list the ways, I mean, just in this book alone, we've watched the king lead sorties into and rain arrows down on people just for the crime of being hungry. All the refugees that have fled the Riverlands and now crowding into King's Landing are here because their father had destroyed and ravished their lands and their people. And not to mention the sack of King's Landing during Robert's Rebellion, which...
again, only 18 years ago.
Yes, exactly. Currently, in the last Sansa chapter, she mentioned that people are thinking about that.
Right.
I mean, that was not that long ago. How many of these antler men had mothers and sisters that were raped, or fathers and uncles and brothers that were killed when the Lannisters came into the city?
Yeah. But like you say, the antler men themselves have probably not been as affected by the recent privations, but like they might have old axes to grind for sure, and certainly they'll find willing poorer people to do their bidding at this point, because like you say, it's easy to make a case against the Lannisters to the people of King's Landing.
Yeah.
Not hard at all.
Agreed.
So then Cersei sort of like talks about her very strong distrust of Varys, and I wondered where you think that stemmed from. Obviously Varys is a servant to many masters, and he's very good at making each one of them think that they are his closest confidant. And when it's revealed that that's not the case, that could be a sting, because it's always not the case. He makes everyone think they're the closest confidant.
Right.
Everyone is wrong.
Yes. In fact, I think it was might have been the chapter where Tyrion had dinner with Jaina Slynt, and it ended up with Jaina being sent to the Night's Watch, and then Varys came in after. I think it might have been that chapter where he said to Varys, Tyrion did, "I can't tell if you're my best ally in King's Landing or my worst enemy." And yeah, I mean that's exactly. You don't know where you stand with Varys. What you do know is you're not getting everything that he could tell you if he wanted to.
Yeah. The one specific thing that occurred to me was that it does seem that Varys aided and abetted Robert in siring, visiting, and in general looking after his bastards.
Right.
And that she might see as a pretty significant betrayal.
Yeah, that's a good point. We don't know how often these types of things happened before the book, before we met these characters.
Well, we certainly know that there was a few of them.
Right.
Bastards were not that rare of an occurrence.
Yeah, I thought that revelation was a pretty fascinating insight into the history behind why Cersei dislikes Varys so vehemently. She, throughout this book and possibly even back into Game of Thrones, she is very negative about Varys. And I guess she must have once put trust in him, and he has destroyed it. And now she can't think of him without thinking that he's untrustworthy.
Yeah, but then the very next thing she does is she relies on Varys' intelligence, because Varys has told her that Tyrion plans to take the Hound and Balon Swann away from protecting Joffrey to lead sorties out to protect the river during the coming battle. It seems like a pretty good idea. These are two of the best fighters in King's Landing. You'd want them fighting, not just standing around by the boy king who is nowhere near the fighting.
Yeah, and, the Hound's probably not doing a whole lot of good right now anyway, just following Sansa around, surprising her at the top of towers and stuff.
Tyrion's plan is to put Sansa in the vanguard so that the Hound chases after her.
I did find it noteworthy, though, that he chose the new guy, Balon Swann, over Meryn Trant, who's been in the Kingsguard for quite a while now. But Balon, he did, when Balon was getting his white cloak, he did mention that he thought that was a good pick, that Balon was a good pick for the King's Garden. Whereas Trant failed to collect Arya when he was tasked with that duty and was interfered with by a dancing master. So
yeah. But we have a sneaking suspicion that the Hound might not like this battle, because it feels like that one of the elements that's going to be involved in this battle is fire. There's a lot of fire around at the moment, and being out there on the other side of the walls, I think there's going to be a lot of flames around, and it does seem that he's a bit spooked by that. So
yes,
we shall see.
Could be an issue, but Stannis' vanguards rush to this ferry crossing at the Blackwater Rush to King's Landing. They're stuck on the south side of the river because they didn't plan ahead and cross, ford the river upstream somewhere. Now they have to deal with this, the fact that the King's Landing, what they have as far as soldiers, can deal with them as they try to come across in little bits. Yeah. Rather than come across as a 5,000 person unit. If they try to get 50 across and then bring another 50 across, now they have to deal with this issue.
But like you say, if they'd forded the river 100 miles upstream, they would all be on the right side of the river now and able to launch their attack at any moment without any obstacle.
That's exactly what I mean, yes.
Yep. So, Tyrion wants to parade Joffrey in front of the troops as an inspiration. Mackelly put in the notes here, with such low polling numbers, would it make any difference? Which is funny.
I made myself laugh with that too.
And especially because probably he'll just be sitting in the back guarded by the King's Guard. But then that's one step up on cowering in the throne room with his mother.
Yes, as Tyrion puts it, hiding behind his mother's skirt.
Right, yes. But it sort of depends what Joffrey does. If Joffrey, maybe gets his sword out and gives a rousing speech, that might be one thing. But if he attacks a peasant for looking hungry at him...
which seems more likely. Ultimately, it's not a bad plan to keep Joff somewhere safe but around. Maybe it'll inspire some misguided fool. Also, maybe on the other hand, maybe seeing the realities of war might help him mature a little bit, which also seems highly unlikely, but
doesn't seem
couldn't hurt.
Or maybe Cersei's right. Tyrion is trying to get him killed.
That's I guess that's an option too.
Because as she described, Joffrey dead, Tommen on the throne with you pulling the strings. Tyrion couldn't help himself but go, yes. Now you've said it. No, I love my nephews. So Cersei asks directly if the city's going to fall. Tyrion says no, but he thinks even if it does, they can probably hold out on the Red Keep till their father gets there, which is very true. The nature of the city is that the Red Keep is more defensible than is the city.
Right. Yeah, and then you've got Maegor's Holdfast inside of the Red Keep, which they can even go into further if they need to. And we saw last Cat chapter, I think was Cat 6, Tywin was headed in the general direction of King's Landing after being rebuffed in the Battle of the Fords when he couldn't get his men across the river to get back to Casterly Rock and try and defend the west from Robb. He gave up and was heading in a southeasterly direction. But then we also got the news that the Reach houses of Oakhart and Rowan were seen north of the Mander, but we have no idea if that means anything at all. So
yes, it definitely means something. We just have no idea what it means. They could have been attacking the Lannister army or parlaying with the Lannister army.
Exactly. We just don't, or none of the above. We just don't know. But we do have that other bit of information hanging out there that might affect that whole plan in some way. But then talk turns toward Tommen, and Tyrion, he announces he's going to release Lord Giles Rosby, and Cersei can have Sir Boris Blunt back if she wants him, and
she does not.
No, she has no interest in getting Blunt back. She says he can rot in a Rosby dungeon for all she cares. She had him stripped of his Kingsguard white cloak after Tommen was taken, when he put up basically no fight to save Tommen at all. But Tyrion says that Tommen is safer under the protection of Lord Jacelyn Bywater than he was under Rosby's. And that made me think of what you asked, possibly, it was the last Tyrion chapter when we were watching the mountain clansmen going across the river.
Is Tyrion making the same mistake as Ned, sending away his most trusted allies, leaving himself vulnerable? Yeah, well, here you go. The machinations begin in a few seconds when she reveals that she's caught his little whore, as she refers to her.
Right.
Yeah. So, he's now without his clansmen. He's without Jacelyn Bywater. It's Tyrion is stretching his defenses thin.
And we don't know who is currently leading the Gold Cloaks without Bywater here leading Gold Cloaks. We don't know if that person is as pro-Tyrion as Bywater was or not.
I've mentioned in the TV show Bywater is dropped in favour of Bran. Bran is the leader of the Gold Cloaks.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe that's the case here too. We haven't heard.
Right. Yes, we haven't heard, but yeah. So then she drops the bomb that she has his whore, and she says that a Lannister always pays their debts. You, Tyrion, have been scheming against me since the day you came to King's Landing, which is partly true, but is also not true. I mean, his core, at the centre of what he's trying to do, is to protect her.
Right. Ultimately, yes.
But he is scheming against her in many ways. But some of it for the good of her, I think. He wants to stop her from doing some of the self-destructive things that have plagued her to this point.
Yeah, in some ways, he's been undoing the things that she's done that he doesn't think were the right thing to do, like putting all the Smiths' attention on making weapons, and he undid some of the things she did so that they don't end up with the huge riot in the city because everyone's been so neglected. Of course, it didn't seem to work, but so the accusations that she unloads on him is that he sold Myrcella, stole Tommen, and plots to have Joffrey killed. And from her perspective, you can see how she might think that he's got a vendetta here because he keeps stripping away her kids one at a time.
Yeah.
And now he wants to throw Joff out on the battlefield. So, you could certainly see how she might think, oh, this is personal here. This isn't him trying to do the right thing.
But who could blame him? She's horrible to him, always.
She doesn't even know about him turning Lancel as a spy against her. So
yeah, which is probably the bigger. I mean, she's not wrong in saying he got rid of Myrcella and Tom and is now putting Joffrey in danger. That's all true, but the bigger shenanigan that he's playing is the Lancel one.
Right, because the first two, Myrcella and Tommen, were for the good of the family.
As is the Joffrey thing. It's to try and win this battle,
right.
To try and win this battle, and if we lose this battle, have our kids somewhere else,
Yeah, right. That's certainly the plan with Tommen, is to, keep him away.
And the plan with Myrcella is to keep Dawn from joining the battle against them,
Right.
All of this is for the good of the Lannisters.
But she says, you want Joff dead so you can roll through Tommen. Which is something that that he and Bronn have had a conversation specifically about.
Yeah, well, but I mean, the thing is, the thing about that is, it feels like she's onto something, but at the same time, the reason is because you've had the same thought we've all had. Wouldn't it be great to get rid of Joffrey? If Joffrey was dead, Tommen would be king. He's too young to be king, and somebody could take control and run the kingdom better.
Yes.
You know, so I don't
true.
think she's got any great intel here. I think she just happened to have come across the same plot. You know.
Okay. Yeah. The reason what I was going to ask you is, Bronn brought it up. He proposed the idea, and Tyrion shot it down. So could Bronn possibly be on Cersei's payroll, like the Kettleblacks and Lancel are working for Tyrion while pretending to work for Cersei?
Well, if Bronn is, and I mean that's an interesting question. I'm going to say it's a little bit rich of Bronn to hatch the idea and then sell it to your paymaster as the idea of the person you're spying on. It's like, come on,
you're just making stuff up now.
Exactly.
But also in that room...
He doesn't even have to run these ideas past Tyrion anymore. He just has them. Tell Cersei. Yeah.
Tell Cersei it was Tyrion's idea. But also in the room when Bronn brought up the idea of ruling through Tommen and getting rid of Joff was Varys. And we know that, Varys told Cersei about Tyrion's idea to want to take the Hound and Balon Swann off of protecting Joff duty. Now, this is a whole nother level than just saying, he wants to remove the Hound from personal protection duty. This is This is a whole nother level here. But I guess you can't rule out the possibility that Varys may have.
It's an interesting thought, but again, I still think you can independently come up with the same idea because it's a.
Yes.
Everyone in King's Landing has had that idea.
You're right. When you actually think about it, you wouldn't take a whole lot to leap to that conclusion. Right.
But I can't rule it out. Especially, Bronn I think is a stretch because Bronn, I think, is loyal to Tyrion in his own way. But Varys, of course, could have... Because Varys didn't voice the idea. It was Bronn. So at least Varys is not the one who's planting the seed and then reporting that the seed is growing. So then Cersei wheels in Alayaya, and a part of Tyrion's got to feel vindicated. She really was in the danger he thought she was in.
Yeah.
And his plan to get to see her via Alayaya has protected Shae from what is going to befall Alayaya, which is kind of frightening.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. On one little piece of him would be like, "Aha! I knew it."
Exactly. Yeah.
All my efforts were for a real reason.
Yeah. I do wonder if he has to feel a little bit of guilt towards Alayaya because his insistence on choosing her every time is what's alerted Cersei.
Right.
It had to be done because they couldn't trust all the ladies of Chataya's brothel. Clearly, they couldn't trust them because someone's blabbed.
Right. Yes.
But he could have rotated through a couple of trusted ones, perhaps, just to sort of keep it on the down low. I don't know.
Yeah, the minute he decided to go through with this plan and go up to Alaya's room every time, did put her in the crosshairs because
right.
The whole reason was so that Cersei or anyone wouldn't find out about Shae, which means he had fear that they were going to be trying to find out who he was visiting, which puts Alayaya in danger immediately.
But all of that presupposes that when Tyrion visits the same lady every time, that he's somehow fallen in love with her. Is it a guarantee? We do know he has a soft spot for his ladies of the night, and tends to fall in love with them. But just because he goes to the same one every time doesn't mean he's in love with her. It could purely be transactional,
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I had that same thought that what made her think that he was in love with
his nature.
Yes,
his nature is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not a proof, especially because if you think about Alayaya, I think Alayaya is perfectly comfortable with her job and her role.
Right.
She is not the kind of prostitute who talks to every rich man who comes away and asks to be whisked away from this life. A la Shae, in the same way that Shae is, yeah?
Yes, right.
Alayaya is not doing that. So the thing is, that might be a very comfortable place for Tyrion, to see a prostitute who doesn't want the thing that he is on the cusp of giving away anyway because he can't help himself.
Yes, that's a very good point. Yes, he knows she might be upfront about the fact that no, this is a business transaction. I am not falling in love with you. I don't want to be, your wife or anything like that.
That professional distance might really appeal to a man who once accidentally married a prostitute.
It could be, yes. You might seek that particular situation out.
Yeah.
But I was wondering why Alayaya was putting herself through this. I mean, obviously she knows what he does when they're in quotes together. And she could have shown the Kettleblacks the wardrobe and explained.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know where he goes.
Yes, see the hole in the back of that? He goes through there and he disappears. I don't know where he goes when he does that, but that's what's happening. She could be shouting that to the rooftops, but she doesn't say a thing about it.
Yes, Alayaya, I mean, she probably didn't think it was that dangerous. I mean, again, she's a prostitute who sees rich, wealthy people. She probably doesn't think... But then again, she knew he was hiding his real love from someone.
Yeah.
So she was always putting herself in those crosshairs.
I can't remember if she had any idea where he was going when he went through the wardrobe or not. But either way, you would think...
I'm sure she didn't know precisely where he was going. I mean, that's,
right, yeah. But was he
deal.
Going to meet someone, or was he going to,
right.
some other business he didn't want people knowing about? But you would think when she's brought out, she would say, "Please tell them it's not me. You come into my room, you go through the back of my wardrobe, down a ladder, and away you go. Please tell them this."
Yeah. Of course, it's much better for Shay if he plays along that they've caught the right one,
Absolutely, yeah.
But this, of course, is a pivotal moment in the relationship between Cersei and Tyrion. He is deadly serious about the end of their relationship. He says, the quote in full is, "I have never liked you, Cersei, but you were my own sister, so I never did you harm. You've ended that. I will hurt you for this. I don't know how yet, but give me time. A day will come when you think you're safe and happy, and suddenly your joy will turn to ashes in your mouth, and you'll know the debt is paid."
Mm-hmm.
I've been really rooting for Cersei's destruction at the hands of Stannis, but I kind of wanted to avoid it now just so she can feel happy and safe, just so I can get the moment when it turns to ashes in her mouth.
In her mouth.
That would be
You want
nice.
The mouth ashes part.
I do. The mouth ashes sound good.
Yeah, it's just, this whole thing just feels like typical Cersei going off half-cocked with just surface level info that she hadn't fully vetted, and her just self-confidence in her abilities as a schemer caused her to believe that she had the right information, that Alayaya was Tyrion's special prostitute. And, it's just another example of Tyrion being on a whole nother level from Cersei as far as playing this game between the two of them. Not that she's not dangerous. She is very dangerous. Yeah. But she just, once again, didn't dig deep enough. She just thought she had the right answer and went with it.
Yeah.
But, so then she says to, she had said earlier to Tyrion that, "I won't say I haven't thought about slitting your throat, that Jaime would never forgive me." And, she finally made her feelings very clear to him as well. There's, this is an airing of grievances here. And,
but I think Tyrion always thought she thought that way,
Yeah, I think he's always thought that Cersei has disliked and possibly even hated him, but, that is a threat that she made even before he made the threat that you just read. She said, "Oh, I've thought about slitting your throat, and the only thing that's prevented me is that Jaime would be mad at me if I did it." So, she makes no bones about how she has fantasized about him being dead. So,
just one potentially interesting point is that Osney and Osfrid Kettleblack are the brothers of the new Kingsguard Osmond Kettleblack. They are the ones who drag in Alayaya, and supposedly they're on Bronn's payroll. So, they are working for Cersei here. I mean, I guess it's just guard duty. It doesn't mean that they are not truly on Bronn's payroll.
Right.
they probably don't know that she's the wrong woman.
Yeah,
Why would Bronn let them into that secret? They seem big and dumb. The last thing you would want to do is share sensitive information with them.
I don't know that Bronn knows where or who Shay. Well, he would know who because she traveled with them. But I don't think...
He found Shay, didn't he? Maybe that's a TV show. He found Shay for...
Oh, Bronn found Shay before the battle at the Green Fork. Yeah. But Varys set up this whole plan with Chataya's brothel.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure exactly how in the know Bronn is about all this situation going on with Shay.
Right, but he knows Alayaya is not Shay.
Right. Yes, he would know that. Yes.
Do you have some background for us?
I do have some background, and let me tell you, it was not easy coming up with background. I remember you saying, I think it was very early in this book, that you had a feeling background was going to get exceedingly difficult as the...
That's why I left you to do it.
Yeah.
You strike me like a gold prospector from the 1840s. You're sort of like sifting through enormous amounts of gravel, sort of just looking for gold.
Looking for something.
Sometimes it comes up dry. Can I tell you what you found today? In a book I read about gold prospecting, a piece of gold big enough to allow you to go back home and live a comfortable life was called a homeward bounder.
Oh, okay.
A homeward bounder, or just a bounder, they would call it. So I think you found a bounder here.
All right, good. Well, here's the bounder. So, like I said, Tyrion obviously is the current hand of the king, which is a station his father held before him to King Aerys II. However, there is a third Lannister to have held the title of Hand of the King. In fact, he was the first Lannister to do so. Sir Tyland, not Tywin, Tyland Lannister was Hand of the King to Aegon III. And how he got there was quite the wild ride. So Tyland and his twin brother Jason grew up in Casterly Rock, and before the Dance of the Dragons ever began, those Lannister brothers were associated with then Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, both vying for her hand in marriage. Neither was successful. And although he didn't get the wife he was hoping for, Rhaenyra's father, King Viserys, did name Tyland his master of ships. And when King Viserys died, Tyland backed the Greens, who support Aegon II, rather than the woman he once hoped to marry, Rhaenyra and her blacks. Remember in the Dance of the Dragons, there was the green side and the black side.
Yeah.
As it was the Greens who took initial control of King's Landing, Tyland was named Master of Coin under King Aegon II. And his first act was to divvy up the crown's funds into 4 pots. The Iron Bank, Casterly Rock, and Old Town. He stored funds for safekeepings, and he kept a quarter at the Red Keep for bribes and gifts and buying sellswords and things of that nature. But when Queen Rhaenyra and the Blacks took King's Landing, his once hopeful bride did not go very lightly on him. In an attempt to find out what he'd done with the crown's gold, he was tortured and mutilated, including being gelded. But he held strong and didn't give up the information.
But according to his later ancestor Cersei, that would have made him more powerful and more dangerous.
True. That is true. And that's how he became Hand of the King.
Right, there you go.
More powerful. Eventually, Aegon II and the Greens retook the city, and Tyland was freed from his torture. But while Aegon II was deliberating on what to do with his captive nephew, Rhaenyra's son Aegon the Younger, the options he was considering was sending him to the wall or gelding him to end Rhaenyra's line, Tyland argued for death, as Aegon II, the elder, would never be secure as long as his nephew lived. That's cooler heads prevailed. That is not what happened to young Aegon. Aegon II sent Tyland to Essos to buy sellswords to help in their fight. However, when Tyland returned, Aegon II had died, and Aegon III was now king. Yep, the same boy he wanted dead before he left.
Okay.
Although in an odd twist of events, Aegon III named Tyland his Hand of the King.
Keep your enemies close?
I guess. Despite his previous feelings on young Aegon III, he served the king very loyally, claiming that he couldn't remember who was on the blacks and the green side of the dispute. And that's probably enough for now because, this was a rather long background section, but we'll certainly talk more about his time as Hand of the King in the future, in some future episode or so.
Because you got to parcel this stuff out, yeah?
Right. And I was thinking maybe we'll talk more about what spawned the Targaryen Civil War, the Dance of the Dragons, that pitted brother against sister, as we prepare for a possible Dance of the Lions here between Cersei and Tyrion.
Ah, very good. Very good.
Yes. Oh, and one final tidbit. Tyland and Jason Lannister are both characters in the upcoming House of the Dragon TV show. We mentioned that back when they were originally cast. So just
is there a release date
for House of the Dragon? I've not heard a release date yet.
Okay.
2022, I've heard.
That's this year?
That is.
Comparisons with the television show. This is very much captured. The news of the Stark boy's death was not part of this, so this either didn't happen in the TV show or has just not reached King's Landing yet. Just an aside, they mention that Joffrey is 17 in the TV show, but in the book they mention he's 13.
Oh,
so
that's
quite
a
big
difference.
difference. Yeah.
Yes.
Chataya and Alayaya are dropped from the TV show, and so the role of not being Shay is taken by Ross, who was a whore originally of Winterfell. In fact, she slept with Tyrion back when they were in Winterfell, and she, Ross, followed Ned et al. South for warmer climes, much to Theon's dismay. Theon was a frequenter of Ross's pleasures. In fact, there's a little cleverness here of the TV show. We never saw it happen, but Tyrion gifted Ross a lion necklace. We know about it because in a later scene between Ross and Theon, later than that gifting, but prior to now, if you see what I mean.
Right, yeah.
Theon asks about it, and she says it was a gift from Tyrion. So that is what encouraged Cersei to believe that he was in love with Ross because he gave her this lion necklace.
Oh, okay.
You see. Yeah, you see, I thought that was quite good.
See how they pulled it together.
Much of the script of what Cersei and Tyrion say to each other is perfectly taken from the book. The threat of matching abuse. Remember I mentioned that Tyrion said that whatever befell Alayaya would befall Tommen?
Right.
It's actually Cersei who says that. She says whatever happens to Joffrey in the battle will happen to Ross.
Oh, okay.
So that was the only small bit. Pedantry, I don't have much, but both of them are wearing velvet. Now, I just want to say, winter is coming. These two are both secretly Starks. Winter is coming, but it's still going to be too warm in King's Landing, especially if you're eating a whole roast pig and a whole roast swan. You're going to start to sweat under that velvet, I feel.
You get the meat sweats.
Exactly. News and notes.
News and notes. So the Ice and Fire Con is coming up. It's April 22nd through the 24th of 2022. It's being held at Deer Creek Lodge in Mount Sterling, Ohio, and tickets are still available. I don't think we are going to be going. I'm
still afraid of coronavirus, Mackelly.
I know.
I mean, I want to meet people, but I am kind of afraid of dying.
So maybe 2023 we will. Maybe we'll do a meetup.
In
Ohio's
person.
not too far of a trip for us.
It's a big country. I have no idea how far away that is. It sounds a long way away.
Really? You don't know?
I mean, I guess you take one of the roads that leads north.
Yes, you would.
Actually, that is funny. Actually, now I think about it, I've gone from here. I've gone north up the coast. I've gone south down the coast, and I've gone all the way across the country.
Right.
But I've never gone sort of to the Midwest, so I don't know. I have no idea how to get there.
Well, as a Western Pennsylvania kid, I'm quite familiar with where
roads.
Ohio's
Yes.
located. So I'll get us there if we need to.
All right, let's conclude. The Stark boys are dead. it is a Song of Ice and Fire, so our beloved characters do get killed.
Yeah.
But it feels abrupt even for this, that they would have just been killed like that, off scene, and then we come back to them and they're dead.
Yeah. You're right.
Fingers crossed.
Both things. There's both things make sense. I mean, we watched Ned get decapitated, and he was the hero of our story. Yes, that's true. And yeah, it is a very surprising way to have this information revealed to us.
If that Arya chapter had started with, and the day after Ned was decapitated, I would have been like, what? How could you? It was bad enough, but it would have been even worse.
Yeah, and the Cold War between Cersei and Tyrion seems to be over. I mean, siblings fight. We both have siblings. We know that they fight.
Cold War is over in the sense that it's now a hot war. Right?
It is, yes.
No.
There is but it seems no way back from the things that were said and done to each other in this chapter. I mean, especially the threats on Tommen and the promise of vengeance. Yeah. And
it feels like things could come to a head, despite the fact I think Tyrion would like to put all this aside until after the battle. He is clearly fuming and is ready to, like he said, ashes in her mouth.
Yeah, and the castle, I mean, it's a fairly big castle, but is it big enough for the two of them? That's going to be the question, I guess.
So Shae has got herself a little bit of daylight now. Tyrion managed to convince Cersei that Alyaya was his love, and even if contradictory evidence shows up at this point, she's not going to be keen to admit she was wrong.
Right.
We have our biases.
Yes, you're right, yeah. But he's in quite a pickle, Tyrion. He's fallen in love and has no way to know if Shae might actually love him or is just playing the role she was hired for. And she is, as we're seeing here, she is quite a weakness for him that he can ill afford to have right now.
Right. Yep. And we know that we think of Tyrion as a man who always needs to be loved, and Tyrion often plays roles that other people see in him. He did say he would do awful things to Tommen, and it was noteworthy that he said it immediately after saying he would never hurt his nephews.
Right. It did come like within minutes after saying the boys are safe with me.
but Alyaya had just been revealed to him, so it...
Yes. Yeah, I mean, Cersei told Sansa Tyrion has an affliction where he needs to be loved. But then we've seen multiple instances where he's willing to play the role that people think that he is, like playing the evil monkey demon by having all the area burned down outside of the tower, outside of the walls, I mean. And here, Cersei says that he's a little twisted man, and she's like, he thinks, well, then I'm going to play that little twisted man and scare you into keeping Alyaya safe. So, doesn't always need to be loved, I guess.
The next chapter is a cat chapter, so hopefully we will have the myth dispelled.
Oh boy, that could be a tough chapter.
Yes,
it could be a very tough chapter. But
that's for next time. As always, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com and follow us on Twitter at @ghostharrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Discord.
And you can, if you want to help support the show, you can go out and buy some merchandise at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com, or you can buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal. And we want to as always, give a thank you out to those who are already sustainers. And you can also go out and give us a positive review. We'd very much appreciate that. You can do it on iTunes, or you can give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or anywhere else you can find to rate or review us. Nothing helps spread the word more than that, and we greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.